Did something.
See? You don't need dancing for everything.
No, for most things, but yeah, I did one thing myself.
Perfect. Okay, I'll line this up and then we'll begin. Thank you, by the way, for doing this. Appreciate it.
Hey, cheers, man. Thank you. I don't know how you fit all this in with everything else that you're doing.
Well, you know what it's like. Someone asks you for something and you forget to say no, and then here we are. Okay, I will.
Just say no, James. Just say no.
Just say no. I'll begin. Steve Patterson, the star of CBC's Debaters, but also now the star of the Hubcap Comedy Festival. This was a shit beginning. I'm going to start again. I don't know why. I haven't done this with anyone else. I don't know why I'm doing like this. I'm just going to go. I'm going to say hello, Steve, and I'll start. Okay?
All right.
Okay, note to editor, cut that. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yes.
Steve Patterson, how are you?
Hey, James.
It's very, very nice to see you again. Although it's nicer to see you in the flesh, but you know this works.
Yes, well, I can't wait to be out there with you sharing the stage. We've only had a couple chances, so
yeah.
I'll take whatever chance I can get to stare at James Mullins. I'll tell you that.
The feeling is very mutual, Mr. Patterson. You're obviously a fan of the Maritimes, and you've obviously worked in New Brunswick a lot before. What do you like most about New Brunswick, do you think?
Well, I like that the tourist attractions are sort of seasonal. You know, I like that they sometimes work and they sometimes don't. Reversing falls or magnetic, whatever that is. I love that. I was just there and a local was like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. Like, that's great. I mean, sell it, you know. There's a lot of covered bridges because who wants to get hit with elements when they're on bridges? So, but it's mostly, as you well know, the people out there are just receptive crowds. They always are on for a laugh, and you know, that's where comedians want to go.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and this is something that's kind of come up a lot. Is people have commented on the way that Maritimers, certainly unlike English audiences, but unlike possibly some Toronto audiences, people in the Maritimes tend to come out to laugh. Which, as it sounds like a weird thing to say, but it is true. Like they come out to have a good time, and they're not going to be kind of constricted by anything.
100%. I mean, I think that, like, you know, growing up in Toronto it's just been my whole life of people hear you do something in the arts and they'll be, oh, we got to come check that out, and you never see them again. They'll actually make an effort to not only not see your show but never see you again. So personally, it's refreshing that in the Maritimes you can be sure if someone says they're going to come to a show, they're coming and they're bringing friends, and that's all you can ask for is just honesty. Don't tell me you're going to come if you don't. But I find that Maritimers, when they say they're going to be somewhere, they'll be there and they'll bring friends.
Yeah, and it's not. It doesn't even have to be family or someone you've met. It's literally like you walk into a coffee shop and someone says, "You're not from here. Where are you from?" And you say what you do. That person will be at the show that night.
100%. And you know, a lot of it does help that there aren't a lot of other entertainment options, you know, but
there's no denying that.
But they do love to laugh, and they're, you know, heckling in the Maritimes is I don't want to encourage heckling, but I think that when people participate in the show, 9.5 times out of 10 it's constructive and happy. So it's always, you always want to repeat what they say, because sometimes you don't quite get it, and it's often just as funny as what you would have said. So it's I love the crowd participation out there too.
Yeah.
You know?
That could be a risky thing to say. You're coming to a comedy festival to do numerous shows, and you basically just told New Brunswick that you like it when they heckle. But you're right. The word heckle almost doesn't fit what Maritimers shout out during the shows, because, as you say, it is either a compliment or it's something absolutely hilarious that you're going to be able to run with. It's never an aggressive heckle, is it?
That's right. It's always. Well, it's sometimes it's things you've just never heard before. There's the Maritimes vernacular, you know, that it might sound like an insult to the naked mainlander ear, but it's actually very encouraging. So I always do ask people to repeat things, and they do. That's the other difference. They're not drive-by hecklers that are just trying to get a shot in and then they'll never speak again. They want to participate. You know, you don't want it all the time. You got a show to do, but I find that it's comedy savvy people. They know They know when to participate. And anytime I often bring people on stage with me. Anytime I've ever asked for it, it's a fight to get to the stage in the Maritimes, as opposed to it's a battle to get people on stage in other places. You know, they want to be part of the show.
Yeah, and then they want to come home with you, or they want you to come home with them. I mean, they literally want you to move in. It's not.
That's right. Yeah. You're always going to get a good meal and a nice soft bed, maybe a quilt.
Definitely a quilt. I mean, every Maritime has an extra quilt for the unexpected guest.
Yeah, and they put a patch for you and their family. It's amazing how quickly it happens.
It's true. And obviously you're doing the big gala show at the Capitol Theatre, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful theatres in the country. You've done Hubcap before, is that right?
I have. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
We did debaters out there. I've done my own shows out there, but this is the first time where I'm coming to do kind of a full-length set sort of thing and share the night with a bunch of other comics, which is great. You know, this is the only way people like us get to see each other. Man, my hands look big here, don't they? A huge hand. Look at that. That's just a few fingers. Look at that.
See how big a can can look. Ooh.
Look at that. You can't drink all that.
It's the size of my head.
Have my fake ice cream cone with my daughters. Let me know if you see a camel.
Wow.
There it is. Well, we just get to share a stage with each other, which is rare because everyone's out on their own things. That's what I love about festivals. Yeah. You're right. The Capitol is one of the most beautiful theaters in the whole country. It really is. And we think we're blowing smoke, but we're not. They're lucky to have that theater there, and it's always a thrill to perform on it. Definitely,
and it's like you say. I mean, for the most part, this can be a solitary job. Certainly, in the case of corporate gigs, we're traveling around by ourselves, and this is the one time that all comedians get to come together and share stories. And essentially, it's kind of like a holiday camp for comedians, but it's in February in New Brunswick, so which is kind of good.
Right.
Because it does kind of like a camp. In a holiday camp, you're all kind of forced to stay together. And like February in New Brunswick, you're forced to stay together because there's none of this comedians going off to visit with friends and family in the area because you can't leave the venues.
No, you're not going outside. You'd be risking your life. So it's I'll be probably at either the St. James Gate or the Old Triangle 97% of my time that I'm there, and the other 3% is on stage, and I might try to catch a nap at some point, and that's about it. But you're right. I like festivals that are kind of a manageable size that all the comics can kind of hang out together off stage as well, and it does make a difference to the show. I think when you are kind of all rooting for each other as opposed to everyone's sort of off in their own directions. It's great when there's one show going on that's the focus that a bunch of comics are on.
Definitely. And you've obviously been doing this a long time now, and I'd like to go back, if we can, to the start of your career. What was the thing that because most people can pinpoint the moment that they were kind of spurred to try that first open mic spot. Do you remember that, and what was it?
Yeah, mine was pretty straightforward because I was signed up to do comedy by university dorm mates, so I showed up just to watch a comedy show, and I was on it. And so I didn't have any time to not be prepared for it. And I have a Steve Patterson's a fairly common name, so I literally looked around when they said Steve Patterson. I just thought, oh, that's great. There's another comic named Steve Patterson, or there's a comic named Steve Patterson on the show, and it ended up being me. So I had zero preparation the first time I went on stage, and I think that's the way that I like it. I like that spontaneous element. I mean, I prepare now. People that are listening to this, I'll have some ideas. Sure. But I know I'm going on.
But I know what you mean. In that, I find the best gigs are the ones where I'm asleep in the dressing room, and then I hear my name, and I wake up and run out.
Yeah. It's like you've woken from a dream. You're not sure whether it's real or not. That's the energy. That's the energy you want. I don't think anyone wants to see someone doing something that they've done 10,000 times. That's sort of assembly line comedy. You know what I mean? I think you want fresh stuff. You want to know that the people know what's going on in the world at that time and what's going on in the room at the time. I think that there's different reactions of every audience, and And you know, look who I'm talking to, James. You're one of the best out there, for God's sakes. I don't know if you've ever heard of stand-up comedy, James. Let me tell you.
This is not about me, Steve. This is about you. I'm here to
about
us.
You. It's about us. It's about the glasses behind you. It's about this piece of art, which I'm trying to just sell with this interview.
How much is that? Would you like me to pop up a little thing on the screen saying...
Isn't it lovely? It's, well, I didn't do it. It's like a linograph, I think, of a tree. That's what it is.
I like it.
But it's, I got it. I was drunk when I bought it, but I think it really brings the room together, you know?
I agree. All art should be bought drunk, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So you basically have that kind of rare privilege of being the only person in history to do their first gig without any nerves.
Well, there was nerves, but no preparation.
Right.
Yeah. I had no expectations going in.
Yeah.
And I still find that's a good way to go into shows. You know, the comedians that want to be introduced with all the credits of everything they've ever done. I would rather just be, this is a guy off the street. We're not sure. This is his first show. Let's see how it goes. I wish I could be introduced like that all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny because that whole listing CV credits thing I wasn't even really aware of until I moved here, because in England no British comedian would dare have that before their name, because English audiences, if they heard that, they would instinctively go, oh yeah, come on then, right? Whereas, you know, you wouldn't want anyone saying, I remember once, I'm sure you've met him, Adam Bloom. I once introduced him to the stage by saying, he said, no credits, no nothing. I said, don't worry, I said, I'm not going to, this just rolled out of my mouth. I said, okay, next comedian, you're going to absolutely love him, it's Adam Bloom. And afterwards, he freaked out at me, saying, you said they're going to absolutely love you. That made them all think, no, we're not, we hate him.
Right. The bar set too high.
Yeah. And it was just one of those throwaway lines. But that in England, that's, you know, no one. It's like no. Whereas at least the audiences are slightly more friendly. But you're right. I mean, there is that thing of why set it up here when we can come out and wow them.
Harlan Williams, you know, I've been watching for years. Used to have people introduce him as different names than Harlan Williams. Sometimes he was. This guy is 2 peanut butter sandwiches and a pair of boots. Like he didn't want anything to do with the normal introduction process. And he also, you know, instead of going up and saying, how about a big hand for your host, he would go up and go, how about a big hand for someone that's helped you at some point in your life when you were struggling? I always loved he was bizarre right from the beginning. I love that.
That's beautiful. And I guess the big question is, how did that first gig go?
Oh, good question, James. I paid to have the person killed that videotaped it, so there will be no one will ever know. You know, there was before phones where you could just record it and send it out into the world, thank God. And,
there was someone there.
Yeah, it's an old-fashioned camera. Yeah. They actually draw the frame for frame. I had a courtroom sketch artist come in. It
took 16 hours to delete a form.
Yeah, it was a long time. It looked funny, though. It was a flip book. And it was very boring because I was just standing there. So a lot of wasted effort. It went well enough for me to want to go back, but I didn't go back for a long time because I was in school. I was going for law at the time, and then a business. I have a business degree. One of those comics that does other things a little bit like yourself, but not as much as you. So I only did other things until I figured out I could do comedy, and then I stopped doing the other things, James. That's what you're supposed to do, okay?
I did
You're supposed to stay awake for the rest of your life and edit magazines and record and do everything else.
I know, it's funny trying to schedule these interviews, and other comedians are like, right, so what time, you know, when can we do this interview? Because the day's not an option because I'm in bed, and then night's not an option because I'm working. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot that in this job, some people don't have to get up at 6 a.m.
Right. Yeah, they're vampires. Yeah. Well, I have a toddler, so the options of staying asleep are not good anymore. So.
No, you're up anyway. Well, thank you for being up. I appreciate it.
This is great, man.
It's cool. And so obviously we've got you know, this big show, which, as I understand it, I mean, sales for your show are kind of breaking records. That is what I've been told. I'm not blowing smoke. This is a fact. So we don't even need to be doing this, really. This is Pointless. The show's almost sold out.
It's not pointless to me.
No,
I'm trying to sell this. Somebody, look at this. Isn't it beautiful? Look. It's sort of like a Dr. Seuss character, but it's from a tree.
It is lovely. I have to say though, is it going to be on Kijiji anytime soon, so I can direct people towards Kijiji?
I'm quite fond of it, actually. Once I sobered up, I still liked it.
Yeah, it's good. No, I like it. It's grown on me. I'm going to be quite disappointed when this interview ends and I have to look at this view without that painting in it.
I'll send you a freeze frame.
Perfect, thank you. Awesome. And I guess my final question is, who are your comedy heroes? Who are the people that either you looked up to growing up or when you were starting out kind of helped you and guided you?
Well, the biggest influence to me is probably Derek Edwards, as a lot of people cite, or a lot of people of a certain generation cite, and he's kind of the one guy I can watch 1,000 times in a row and just watch every minute and enjoy it, because he is just he's such a wordsmith. He's so great, and even just changing. He's the first guy that taught me that changing the order of the jokes in your set can actually change the whole set.
Right, interesting.
Just seeing the kind of Rolodex of material that he has to roll with it with different crowds, I think that's the way that I like to do it. There are comics that believe that the same set should travel everywhere, and I think there's a lot to be said for that, and that's great. I've never really loved that. I like to do a Moncton set for Moncton and a Vancouver set for Vancouver and talk about those things, and there'll be some common elements, but you really want to. Derek's the kind of guy that can go to different cities across Canada and open with 8 minutes about that city. That's as good an 8 minutes of comedy as you're going to see. So he's the guy that kind of, I said to myself watching him, if I can ever approach that level of greatness, then I'm doing all right. And it's funny because there's most of the comics that I love are not like, Derek I would hope is a household name in Canada, but there are a lot of high profile comics that are not my cup of tea, and it's great that other people like them, but it does, legitimately confuse me. Some American acts are as big as they are. I'm like, well, but then they have a president that I obviously. How did that happen? So there's a lot of different tastes down in our basement there, James. But
it's true. Trying to figure out America is definitely not something we're ever going to do. But there's definitely an argument which this might be my intrinsic way of always trying to find positivity in a negative. But one of the things that I find that I love so much about the Canadian comedy industry as a whole is that because there isn't the kind of traditional star system, because no one is, there isn't a huge amount of people that have become millionaires from Canadian comedy, and there isn't that kind of aspiration. It kind of means that everyone that is in comedy in this country does it out of a pure a completely pure love of the art of stand-up comedy, which for me just makes the experience of working in that industry so much nicer, in that it's not, not that people aren't competitive, but they should be, but it's not cutthroat, and there's no one in it for the wrong reasons. Almost, I guess the best way I can put it is, in 4 years of living here, I've never been in a dressing room with any comedian in this country that I haven't liked. So it definitely seems to attract the right people, whereas I can't say that about England or America.
Right. Well, I think it's a great point. And different communities are more supportive than others as well. I think that the Vancouver community, I was just out there for a few weeks, and just the BC comedy community, there's so many great comics out there, and they're legitimately pulling for each other.
Yeah.
Ivan Decker was just on Conan a couple nights ago, or I don't know when we're going to show this. Yeah. Ivan Decker was on Conan several nights ago.
Last month, last year, depending on it. Google Ivan Decker.
Yeah.
And it might be his 7th appearance when you're watching this.
Yeah, he retired 20 years ago.
He hasn't been back to Vancouver in a decade.
Yeah, we've never heard of him. He died. No, God, what am I doing now? He's. I refer to him as my comedy son, even though I'm not quite old enough to be his dad. But I took him around on a tour with me, and he really is he's kind of the way that I started out, but he's sharp and fresh with the references of things that I can't go on Tinder just for comedy, James. My wife wouldn't understand that. So
we can't do that.
I think that he's he's one of my absolute favorites to watch, and to see him go on and do a nice spot on an American show, and just the support from not just in Vancouver, but the entire Vancouver comedy community was, that was like, if one of us makes it, we all make it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I think that's the attitude you want, as opposed to screw that guy or screw that girl for getting that. You can't control what opportunities other people get, so you got to just focus on yourself and hopefully be happy for other people too.
That's true. Beautifully put. That was a very beautiful and profound way to end this. Thank you very much. That went from funny to sincere. That was a very magical thing you just said, Steve. Thank you.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. And again, I mean, I'll take bids. Like the Da Vinci. I'm not saying it isn't a Da Vinci. I'm not saying it is. But if that one that might or might not have been Da Vinci went for what, $400 million, I will take 1/4 of that for this. 1/4 for this. Not 25 cents. 1/4 of $400 million, which is I think $100 million.
It is, and if you happen to be based in Moncton and you're thinking of spending that money, Steve will actually deliver it to you in February.
I will bring this frame.
But you have to come to the capital, and you come up to the stage, and Steve will hand it to you in public.
I will present this to you after you give me cash. Not a check.
Amazing. Steve, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Christmas, and I can't wait to see you in February.
Thanks, James. You too, man. All the best to the family. We'll see you out there.
Appreciate it. Likewise, brother. Take care, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.